Today we're talking about imposter syndrome. And I'm only going to spend about 4 or 5 minutes on this, and we could actually spend an entire, afternoon talking about it. But imposter syndrome is like all the rage. Everybody's talking about it. It's the buzz across the country, right? Particularly women want to unpack it and understand it more. So I thought I'd spend a little bit of time just quickly explaining what it is, talking about the 5 imposter types that have been defined by Dr. Valerie Young, and then get into a few hacks that I use to help, break the spell. So first of all, 70% of all Americans have admitted to experiencing imposter syndrome at one time or another. And they've admitted to it, so probably the number is even higher. And it affects men and women equally, so this is not discriminate, right? Okay, so what is it? It's a feeling of inadequacy. It's a feeling of inadequacy, a feeling like you're a fraud, that you don't belong in a room because, you don't measure up. And what happens when we feel this chronically, where you can't escape it, it feels like every team meeting on Friday, you're feeling this sort of like, I don't belong here, is that we will make choices that will adversely affect or, not help us, right? They're going to adversely affect us and be harmful to whatever it is, our goals, our dreams. And how does that manifest? Well, when you feel inadequate, you feel like you don't belong, you feel like you're a fraud, you may not raise your hand in a meeting so that people can hear your brilliance, they can hear your great ideas, and so it holds the meeting back, right? It also says that you don't have a thought, when in fact you have lots of thoughts, but you didn't feel like you could share them. Sometimes you might feel like you have imposter syndrome and you want to get a further your education or go for a promotion, and you won't apply to get a master's degree or to, apply for that advanced position within your company because you feel like, oh, I'm not qualified, right? So imposter syndrome can show up and it can really hold us back. So if you're in the space of wanting to pursue your dreams right now, you've got to get a handle on imposter syndrome and start to check it. All right. Now, I talked about Dr. Valerie Young. She wrote the book, The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women. And one of the interesting parts of that book is that she identifies 5 different imposter types. And these are sort of like the default, like where we go when we feel like we have imposter syndrome. This is the thing we'll naturally do to try to prove to everybody that we belong in the room. All right, so the first is the perfectionist. And the perfectionist has high expectations for themselves. And if they mess up, they feel like they failed. So the perfectionist is like very high expectations, usually an A type, right? They don't like to make mistakes. I get that. I have a little bit of that in me. The superwoman is like the woman who's working at night. She's working on the weekend. She puts in all these really long hours. She's trying to prove to herself and everybody else that she can do the job, that she belongs in the room, okay? The natural genius. The natural genius is the one that drives me crazy because they're the ones that everything comes really easy to, right? They know the things. They didn't have to study in high school. They didn't have to study in college, right? They able to draw connections quite easily, in meetings. And so the natural genius believes that they can pull things together pretty quickly and that they just are brilliant, right? And they probably are. But when they can't make a connection or they don't know something, they get really hard on themselves and they feel like something's wrong with them because that's not normal, right, for them. It's an uncomfortable space to be in. The next imposter type is the soloist, which is me. And so the soloist doesn't like to ask for help. I'm constantly trying to fix a thing on my own, research something on my own, learn something on my own, and not bring any new voices or people to the table to help me save time, money, resources, add value. Like I'm just like, I got it. So I am a chronic soloist and have to really work hard to invite other people into my space to provide input. And then the last but not least is the expert. The expert is wonderful. They're the folks who are continuously seeking out new education. They want more certificates. They go back to school. The way they prove their worth and value in a room is to just keep learning. They just learn and learn and learn. They have all these letters behind their name. They're doing all the things. They go to Stanford and get the free courses, all the things, right? I can relate to that too. So those are the 5 imposter types. If those resonate with you, then I want to give you a couple of tips on how to break the spell around imposter syndrome when it rears its ugly head. The first is to just get honest. Just be honest and tell somebody that you're feeling this way, because it's sort of like stepping out of the shadow and into the light. That's kind of what that is. And you got to tell somebody who is willing to listen and might be able to provide some helpful feedback. I have good girlfriends in my life that always want to tell me, girl, you're great, you're doing it, do the things. They're so encouraging, which I love. But sometimes you also need the girlfriend who's like, okay, tell me more. Help me understand why you feel this way. And girlfriends who will give me really good advice in the moment that I can use to do, to sort of like change the way I'm thinking the next time, right? So you gotta have both sets of girlfriends. So find those girls and get honest, okay? Tell them. The next thing is get rid of the if-then statements. You know what I'm talking about? If I get named to 40 under 40, then I can go after my dream job. If I get booked for 5 speaking engagements, then I can call myself a speaker, right? If I make, $50,000 this year, then I can say I'm an entrepreneur. I mean, we do the if, then I must be. When in fact you are those things. If you're speaking in front of a crowd, then you're a speaker. You're a public speaker. You don't have to do it 5 to 10 times to prove to anyone that you're a speaker. You are a public speaker because you did take that risk and you did the thing. So if-then statements, bury those. That's like really hard for imposter syndrome because we put time limits and milestones when it's not necessary. Sometimes the next tip is sometimes being an outsider, quote unquote outsider, is normal. When you start a job, you're not going to know everything. You might feel inadequate in a meeting. You might feel like you don't belong there, right? Because you're new. You don't even know the culture yet. You're still learning. That means you just need to take time. It's just time. And then the spell of imposter syndrome will go away. Another time you might feel like an outsider, but that it's really okay, and you might start to feel imposter syndrome is when you get called out to get a promotion or to take on a special project at work, and then nobody else on your team was invited to do that, and so you feel like all eyes are on you and you're like, I'm not worthy of that. I shouldn't have been asked to do that. Someone else should have been asked to do that. Instead of thinking about all of the things that it shoulda, woulda, coulda, you should celebrate. You should celebrate that accomplishment and be like, yes, I'm a badass. I did that thing. Thank you. Instead of feeling like inadequate or that you're undeserving, okay? And then last but not least, I'd love for you to think about your highlight reel. This is one of the best ways to break up imposter syndrome, is to simply think about all of the things that you have accomplished over time, professionally and personally, how resilient you are, how incredible you were when you met that goal or you accomplished this thing. You have the evidence that proves that if you did it back then you can do it again. So sitting in this room and feeling inadequate in that moment isn't real, because you have so much evidence that you've done it before successfully that this is nothing. This is chump change. You got this, right? You got this. So thinking about and writing down your past accomplishments goes a really, really long way. And I will leave you with this, which everybody knows is kind of my thing. The way that I break up imposter syndrome is simply by reminding myself that, Jess, the room is better because you are in it. Your voice matters and your lived experience counts. So that's what I say to myself. I challenge you to say the thing when you need it. Just say the same thing and it will go a long, long way, because it's true. The room is better because you're in it. Thanks.